Well, welcome back. Howdy ho. Shark River Matt here, don't you know? Well, we're back on the part two of this daring and ingenious, baffling crime that happened on a rainy day, on a rainy night, March 24th of 1999. Where two Loomis Fargo employees transported $2.3 million in cash, which mysteriously disappeared from the Loomis Fargo and Company armored truck that they had been driving down Interstate 80. I'm going to give you a brief recap about the story. Two employees were located in the vehicle. Guy by the name of Howard Brown and John Betancourt. They were the two guards shipping the $2.3 million from the depot in Sacramento to San Francisco. Brown had been a loyal employee for over 30 years. Alongside him were his colleagues, and alongside him was Betancourt. They had handled countless shipments from Sacramento to San Francisco. They drove a semi-trailer with thin aluminum walls and only tall rear doors that were wired with alarms. So in the back, that's the only alarms they had. The armored truck was pretty much the weak link in all of this, and it was about to be exploited. Somewhere between Sacramento and San Francisco, a high-risk heist was in motion. A mysterious figure jumped onto the roof of the Loomis Fargo branch in Sacramento and waited for the perfect opportunity. As it sped down the highway, the thief cut a jagged hole in the roof directly above the currency tubs, which had stacks of 20s, 50s, and $100 bills. It was a meticulously planned operation. That's kind of the synopsis of what the authorities would like people to believe. And that's, I got that directly out of a media source. However, and that's why I'm giving you a basic review of what happened. When they got to San Francisco, of course, they noticed that the money was gone. But I think the story's a lot deeper than that. I don't think that on a rainy night, on a very slick top of a tractor trailer that was only aluminum, that had just an aluminum top, a hole was cut while they were driving down Interstate 80. And by the way, this is Interstate 80. I don't know what time this happened, but it doesn't matter. Interstate 80 westbound going towards San Francisco from Sacramento was very well traveled. You mean to tell me no one's seen someone on top of the tractor trailer? No one reported this. Matter of fact, the only report they got was once they got to the scales in Cordelia, where the only eyewitnesses see anything. They said they seen one guy jump off the back of the trailer. The only evidence that was found was an empty duffel bag and water. Nothing else. No suspects have been arrested. I don't know the status of the investigation. I'm sure it's still an active investigation, however, and I haven't talked to any authorities regarding this case. I've talked to only one person give you a little background on myself. When I worked for Loomis Fargo, I started there right out of the military in 1984, I believe it was, prior to attending a law enforcement academy. I left there. I only worked there about 6 months. Left there, and then I worked in continued my law enforcement career for 25 years, and then I left my law enforcement career and went back to work for Loomis as a senior executive with the company in charge of safety and security. I worked there from 2005 to about 2007, whenever I decided that it was within my best interest to leave, because I had caught and investigated, and due to a general manager's disagreement in mine, was unable to prosecute two individuals that had taken about $70,000 from various ATMs throughout the Bay Area. And I'll leave it at that. So I have no axe to grind with the company. I was treated very well while I was there, but I did not get along with the general manager at the branch that I worked. I was in charge of two branches. One was in Richmond and one was in Milpitas. Him and I did not get along, and I think it was due to the fact that his priority was putting drivers on the road. My priority was safety and security, and I'll leave it at that. The individuals didn't get prosecuted pretty much, and so to say, and this is my read on this whole thing, I had talked to someone in Sacramento, because this crime always intrigued me. So I had talked to an individual that was in the same position I was, that was in charge of the Sacramento branch, who at that time was working as rank and file. So he was basically, and he gave me a little insight on that whole situation. He's no longer with us, but anyway, one of the things that he brought up was the fact that this very well, and even the company admitted this at the time, was more than likely an inside job. The reason they say that is because obviously there's no way someone got on top of a tractor trailer and got on top of it and cut a hole in it while it was driving. That's ludicrous. However, none of this money was ever recovered, and in my opinion, it was probably due to lack of investigative jurisdiction. This is what I ran into when I worked for them. In other words, Loomis Fargo probably didn't want to pursue it. It's an embarrassing case, and the FBI just probably decided that due to their inability to cooperate, it just wasn't something that was going to be prudent, and it was going to tie up a lot of manpower, and they needed help with from Loomis. They do. I mean, they need, you just can't accuse someone, and you just can't, even though you may have suspicions, you can't work on that. You need the evidence before you can make an educated decision whether or not you're going to prosecute someone, or where you're going to at least try to have the courts prosecute them. Let's put it that way. So that's part of the problem right there, and that's probably why this case has never been solved. My guess is it was an end battle between the two. A couple points, key points. Number one, Loomis Fargo never transported money like this after they had done it before. Statements by the driver, Brown, he said that it was it was a concern of his that this thing was an aluminum trailer. I showed pictures in my original, the first part. You go back and look at that, of what a regular inside of an armored car looks like. It would be virtually impossible for someone to penetrate, even with a cutting torch. They could eventually, but it would take one hell of a long time, and it would be one heck of a process. You would definitely see sparks penetrate an armored vehicle, or even the transports. The transports that they use to make shipments like this are bigger vehicles than what you see on the roads. They're not your average size armored car. These are like diesel truck, and I don't know if it sounds like they were just using a regular trailer. I guess I have not seen crime photos of this incident, so I don't know. But the point is, if they were just using a regular trailer like you would see any truck driving company use, well, that's a problem. And having inside information, in this case, people inside the depot knowing, and everyone knows, by the way, everyone knows what goes on within that depot, and especially if someone's intention is to do criminal intent, they're really going to know. They're going to set this up. I suspect that probably what happened was, there's a couple things. Prior to leaving that night, someone had gotten into that trailer, cut a hole in it, and had taken that money out before. That's an assumption. And remember, everything I'm saying here is pure speculation. I'm not quoting anyone from the company. This is completely off the record. I have no idea what happened. This is just my suspicion and the only way that I think this possibly could have happened. So at the depot, someone in Sacramento, usually at the time that truck left, they'd have a little window. People would have a window to get in there, get on the top of that tractor trailer after it had been loaded. Because another thing is the time constraints. I don't know what the time constraints were from the time which they loaded the money until the time they left. But it had to be within that time that someone got on top of that tractor trailer and cut a hole inside that trailer and took the money out. Okay, that money, by the way, weighs about 275 pounds, 280 pounds, I think, by my calculations. That's about what it should be. It's very heavy, so it had to be more than one person. And by the way, these kind of crimes that are like this, don't think that there's not others that are not solved. There's a ton of, if you look out there on the internet, I'm sure you could find many more like this that they don't know who did it. In this case, I suspect that someone in the loop with Loomis Fargo knows who was responsible for that. One thing I have that I'd like to bring up, which was in the original article that I read, was the driver, I believe his name was Howard Brown, refused to turn his shoes over to a company official in charge of safety and security. Why would you be so hesitant to turn your shoes over? He was subsequently accused the company of not using chase vehicles, which apparently they hadn't been doing that anyway. He also said that he thought their safety and security was lax. They assigned him to another position. I guess something happened with he said a supervisor apparently had a hard-on for him or something, and they had subsequently fired him. He came out and went to the press over this. The only reason I think that, now to continue on with the driver being responsible for this, the only thing that I'm very confused about, I'm not confused because he might have done it on purpose, is why would he go to the press in 1991 when this article was written that I read, one of the many articles I read, and give up this story, you know? I mean, that would just bring more attention onto the crime and maybe reignite the investigation. If it wasn't, you know, I'm sure that they've looked at bank records and all that, but you know, it doesn't mean you can't keep, you know, money somewhere for a long period of time. I don't know this guy. I don't know what his lifestyle is, but I'm sure that he's been looked at many times. But I'm still suspicious as to why, and I would like to talk to him. If you're listening to this, Mr. Brown, give me a comment below and let me know, because I'd really like to get your side of the story. Maybe there's a lot more to it that you know, maybe some things did happen. I'm not accusing him. I'm just wondering why he decided not to turn over the shoe. I don't know that anyone was polygraphed. And when I talk about polygraphs, let me tell you my opinion on polygraphs. Polygraphs are inadmissible in court. Police departments use them, although some do not anymore. They're using voice analysis and things like that. These are all pseudosciences. They can be beat. Pathological liar can be there. I'm not going to go into the different ways that polygraphs, but polygraphs are by no means can be used to rule in or rule out suspects. So even if someone was polygraphed, and I haven't read that anywhere, by the way, on any of the media sources I have, so I don't know that they were done, but if they were and they were cleared, I wouldn't put a lot of validity into that. What it comes down to is interview technique, and going over and trying to, you have to, you know, time constraints. I mean, there's so much that goes into the matrix of a good investigation, and within that matrix, you'll find who you're looking for. I had, when I left Loomis Fargo, I was hired by another large company as a consultant, and my admission rate to crimes after I did, and they were having me go to various locations. I was one of the, I'm not going to brag on myself, but I'm very good at interviews and interrogations, and my admission rate was in the 90s, which is pretty high. So anyway, I think that if you have the evidence, and then you need all that before you can get someone and interview them. And you can't go off your gut. You've got to go where the evidence leads you. So the other big elephant in the room is, why did a motorist see someone jump off the back of a tractor trailer at the Cordelia scales where this vehicle was weighed out? Because it was, you know, they all have to stop there to get weighed. I don't know if that's still the process. I think there's exclusions to that. They have these fast track passes now that they automatically do that so they don't have to stop. But anyway, nonetheless. So why did eyewitnesses say that they seen a man jump off the back of the tractor trailer? Eyewitness accounts are very sketchy, to say the least, and this was a very high profile case at the time. So I'm sure they got a lot of tips, but I just can't see, unless, and this is another possibility, unless this crime was perpetrated at the scales. Now, let's think about that for a minute. Could it be done at the scales while the vehicle was stopped? This is a California Highway Patrol stop where they're looking and inspecting vehicles and, you know, putting them on scales and weighing them out. I doubt that a guy with, I mean, you know, my channel is dedicated to bashing on the highway patrol, so maybe it is possible that the guy, highway patrolman, was asleep at the wheel, pardon the pun. But anyway, maybe it did happen there, and if it did, that would explain that. But I seriously doubt that. I doubt that. Probably that eyewitness account was, you know, just something that they had to put in the report, and it got dictated to the media sources. I doubt that it happened there. Seriously doubt that. So my conclusion on this, and I'm sorry I was large-winded on that, is it happened at the Sacramento location prior to that vehicle leaving the depot en route to San Francisco. Suspect, without knowing any of these people personally, on a business level, without knowing what the safety and security measures that were implemented at that time, that's very hard to say. And I don't have reports. It's an active investigation, so I don't know if a FOIA request to the FBI would be granted or not. I guess I could put in for one, but I've got a lot of stuff going on, and I just really wanted to bring this to everyone's attention. If I were to say anything right now, if I were to really try to say who I think could be possibly involved with it, I'm going to have to go with the driver, Howard Brown. And I do this based on, again, this is speculation on my part, based on the fact all the little nuances that happened after he left the company. He gets fired. He doesn't like his, he's having problems with people. That's a clear sign. This probably manifested way before the actual crime was perpetrated. And maybe that's why he did it. Heck, maybe he did it just as a statement and, stashed the money and it's still out there somewhere. Who knows? And then the other thing is he refused to hand over his shoes to company. He said he had no faith, and I'm getting this right off the article, no faith in the company's security people, and that's why he did not. And I think there was one person mentioned in the article. He did not feel comfortable with that process. Well, why wouldn't you give him your shoes? That's my question. And again, if he's listening to this, I hope he is. Why did you not give him your shoes? What was the reason for that? Were you afraid that they were going to frame you? Or, that part I don't understand. So in summary, I would go with him as someone I would like to look at more, and take a look at more. And I know why the FBI probably did not. It was because they weren't getting the cooperation from Loomis Fargo. Again, speculation on my part, but that's kind of what I dealt with. So I think this crime could be solved. Really, I do. I think that if the right attention was focused on it, I do think that it could be revitalized and they could come to a conclusion on this. I don't think it's too late. But over time, people get busy. These law enforcement agencies are tied down. They're short-handed, and they don't have the resources that they had years ago, or even probably back then they didn't have the resource. And it's a money crime. And financial crimes are at the bottom of the totem pole. They really are. No one got hurt. No one got killed, and that's the other part of it. There was no violence. If there was violence in this case, it would have been solved, but there was none. So you've asked me I've gotten so many people asking me that question. I believe that it was an inside job, had something to do with the driver and another employee that was in cahoots with him, and of course, they're no longer with the company, but that's my opinion. So there you go, folks. I hope if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, go ahead and drop them down to the bottom. I had to laugh. Someone sent me a thing saying that, I could go to jail for what this. Come on, man. Are you serious? Really. I'm just quoting what was on an article. Many articles I read about this case. But the thing is, there's not much out there about it. So, you kind of have to really look to find out what happened. So, all right, folks. Well, howdy hey, howdy ho. Like I said, anything you do, you want to know about, just pop me a line down at the bottom in the comments and I'll get back to you. I really will. Thank you for your time and have a great day.